All right, I'm just gonna say it. Ryland and these aliens or alien or whatever, are better communicators than I am with people that I've known for years. Hello and welcome back to the couch. We saved you a seat. My name is Luke and we are checking out a chapter by chapter review of Project Hail Mary. Trailer came out a couple of months ago. We're working through the book. Right now we're on chapter 8. And it's a little dicey, you know? Our boy Ryland, okay? He is been confronted with aliens, and he now has in his possession an item from their ship, and he's got to figure it out, and he's got to figure out how to open it. But chapter 8 begins with the 0G problem. So the issue is that the tools that are in the lab only work in regular G, 1G, Earth G, right? But right now they're in space and there's no velocity going on. So there's nothing for him to utilize in terms of his tools. So we begin this chapter with the flashback. And Strat and Ryland are going to Geneva to meet a Dr. Loken. And neither one of them want to be there. They both want to be doing the thing that they were tasked to do. And Strat is very frustrated because she deems this a waste of time because she's kind of forced into it, and she's the number one authority on Earth right now, like I think overall, and she's being kind of forced to do this. She does not like that, but they do end up meeting with this Dr. Loken person. Now, a pretty funny thing happens. Strat introduces Loken to Ryland, and she's like, "Wait, you mean the Ryland Grace who believes that water isn't necessary for life? You know, unilaterally in all of time and space?" And they begin to bicker and argue. They argue a little bit about the astrophage. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun little argument. And Strat's like, "Yo, it doesn't matter. What are we doing here? Because I am wasting my time." And so the Loken jumps into the question of 0G for the lab. So we're already having this flashback. And what she conveys to Strat and Ryland is that every instrument they intend on using has been tested, some for centuries, about that they all work in 0G, or they all work in 1G, but they won't work well in 0G, and they're gonna have to create all this new technology, all this new stuff for that testing equipment to work appropriately. Why would they go up to space if that wasn't the case? Part of it too is that it's a risk reward system, right? You go up there in 0G, maybe they don't work. You go up there and figure out 1G, then you can just use them. So new technology, it's an issue. So Dr. Loken comes up with a way where they can use the ship as its own centrifuge and spin on its own axis, where the heavier the mass is at the tail end where the thrusters are, and then they can use the ship, the living quarters, as the part that catches that 1G. Thankfully, I'm not great at describing that. So in the book, there's like this really great diagram that kind of explains, too much light, that kind of explains how it works. And so if you get the book, you can see that essentially it's two parts of the ship now that are disconnected by about 100 meters, and it spins on its own axis. And when it does that, Ryland can be inside the living quarters and working in the lab while it's spinning on its own axis. While that conversation is happening, Strat is like, I don't know. And then she looks at Ryland, and Ryland's like, it's probably the best idea. He's pretty good at the thinking big, like both scientifically and morally. And they were a little concerned about the fuel issue, right? Because one side would be that much more massive than the other because there was so much fuel inside of it. But they're only going to be at 0Gs after they use all their fuel, right? So, not an issue. We then fast forward back to the regular time, and Ryland comes to, and he's like, "I'm so happy. I have these memories of things that are super, super useful that just kind of pop up." It's a little bit... I like that. I like that it's part of the story. It's a little simple, but I like that it's part of the story. They're pretty dependent on it. They kind of just could have put stuff on the ship that he could just read and figure out, oh, this is what this is for, and these are this is the process for which we intend on you succeeding. I don't know why there's not bullet points, right? This is how we intend on you succeeding, and he could just read it. But either way, he has this memory come back, and so he then begins the process of decoupling the ship and separating it and beginning the centrifuge action, and he's strapped into the chair while that device is in the airlock because it's too hot to touch. And it starts to spin. He jokes that he can see the other ship spinning too. It's mimicking what they're doing. But he starts to spin on its own axis, and then he grabs the item and he takes it down to the lab and he begins to work on it. He tries a few different things. Most of them don't really work, but one thing, and I'm gonna mispronounce this, but one thing that he does try is he puts some sort of test equipment on it, and he finds out the outer layer of the device is made of xenon glass. Or excuse me, is xenon, I'm going to mispronounce that, Xenon, which is essentially a noble gas. It's unreactive, right? The fact that they've turned a noble gas into a solid, to him, kind of breaks his brain for a minute. How in the world do they do that? Anywho, he tries a few other things and finally comes down to, let's use a chisel and hammer. Very human. We love a chisel and hammer. Love it. He tries it, doesn't work. He can't break through that. He can't break through the outer shell. So he decides to slow down. And what I love about Ryland is he's really good at being like, let's just take a moment. It's probably simpler than we think it is. He takes a moment, he looks and he feels and he sees a seam on the outside. And he thinks, okay, well, I'm going to try to pull this open, which he can't do. And then he's like, is this a screw top? And he turns it. And he's like, oh, well, that didn't work. Maybe aliens aren't righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And so then he turns it back 90 degrees the other way, and it pops off. They're the opposite of humans. Hilarious moment. Actually, I belly laughed a little bit. My dad was a carpenter, plumber, built a lot of stuff growing up. And so that whole righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thing is just hysterical to us. I belly laughed. So he checks on the inside. And they take great detail. Weir takes great detail in describing what's on the inside of the cylinder, because I think I think jumping to the end here would be a great mistake. He wants you to know that the aliens are complex, and so anyway, he describes that it's essentially a model of each of the. It's essentially a model on one end of the cylinder, because there's two halves. On one end of the cylinder, it's a model of all the stars that are affected by the astrophage, with Tau Ceti set in the middle. And then on the other side of the model is the place where they're from. So he's able to kind of see where this alien ship is from based on the coordinates of each one of the stars that are these little spheres that are connected through little pipe links. Pretty interesting how he kind of figures it out. He has to kind of chart it through a spreadsheet, which is hilarious. I'm pretty good at spreadsheets. Not great at spreadsheets, pretty good at spreadsheets. And he has to chart each one. And he figures out that they're from a place, a sun that humans would call Euridia 40. I think that's how you pronounce it. But he comes up with the name Euridians. He's like, oh, I'm going to call them Euridians. Awesome. So then he comes up with the idea, I'm just going to use some of the materials in the lab to indicate where our sun is, right? And so it's reciprocal communication. He's able to use solder to solder together the place where Sol is, the Earth sun, and where Earth is, and then he's able to put the mechanism back together, and he takes it back up to the bridge, reattaches the ship together, discontinues the centrifuge action, and then throws on the EVA suit, grabs the item, tosses it back to them. I imagine this took quite a while. A lot of, communication itself is hard. I imagine this took hours. To me, that seems like that would take like an hour and a half. So he sends it back to them and he sees that it gets to him. He literally throws it, right? He even makes a reference to Joe Montana because he's from San Francisco. And Joe Montana is a famous 49er, San Francisco 49er football player. So he gets back into his ship, and he's just anxiously waiting for them to return his text message. And he gets kind of anxious, and he starts to play some like solitaire game. And he then, through the telescope, notices movement, and the cylinder is coming back to him. And so he gets back out of the ship, he catches the cylinder. It's not as hot anymore, so he's able to kind of use gloves to maneuver with it, and he opens it back up, and a new model is created with both ships next to each other and a tube connecting them. These dudes want to meet. Fascinating. Once again, I am impressed by how thoughtful Ryland is. Like, he's so thoughtful. I'm impressed at the level of trust he has here, because I'm a cynic. I'm going to be like, we need to protect ourselves. You know, we're a species on Earth that deals in predator-prey instinctively. That's how we roll. Been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, or thousands of years, I guess. And so this whole interaction is so interesting, that it's so thoughtful, that he's using science, math, technology to communicate. Oh, they must communicate through the periodic table, because the elements on the periodic table are universal, and how they're measured and weighed and whatnot. Pretty great stuff, actually. This is a good chapter. Not my favorite chapter. I pretty much sped through this. I read this like bam, 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 because it was the relationship with Loken is hilarious. The way that he's communicating, Weir takes a few shortcuts in this chapter where you're kind of already assumed that's what's happening. I imagine this communication, this whole time period that's happened and that will continue to happen between the moment that the ship stops its velocity and Ryland noticing the alien ship to this point is like a full day. But we're taking our time, we're examining each piece. I love how Weir does his homework here and creates an environment where you're able to accept the science, even if it's pseudoscience, and most of it's good, and it's so well researched and documented that we're able to kind of figure it out. I love it. That's maybe my favorite part. He's just in his bag. So well researched. Love this chapter though. Can't wait to jump into the next one. I imagine I don't know what the boarding process is, or how they're gonna dock with each other through a tube. It's interesting. I'm excited. I'm excited that this isn't even like halfway through the book. Like, where are we at? Like 130, 145. It doesn't matter. We're not even halfway. And there's so much more to discover in this world. So this is pretty cool. And we still haven't even gotten to the relationship between Ryland and the crew. I imagine they're going to explain how they determine that Ryland and the crew are the ones being sent. I imagine we're going to pick up a few more Avengers. I call them the Avengers because she kind of abducts Loken, and it's like, you're part of the team now, and Loken's like, nah, and she's like, no, you don't get to say no. I'm the authority on this planet right now. It's like, you can either come with us or they'll drag you here. Either way, you get to work with us forever. I love that. It feels like she's assembling the Avengers. So, which is hilarious. Anyway, I think that's it for me. Like I said, if you want to follow along, I've got the book in the description of this video. You can just go to Amazon, buy it. It's like $10 or $12. I know I've said this in the last video, but the audiobook's good too. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe and share. Can't wait for the movie to come out in March. I think it's going to be great. You know, they did such a good job with The Martian. So I think that's it for me. So I think we're done. But until next time, later, taters.